Emergency video. It's kind of dramatic, but new releases. Hi! I missed y'all. It's been like a week and a half, 2 weeks since I last filmed. And I know y'all have seen like videos since then, but it's been a while since I filmed and I missed y'all. I was busy with like a radiology research presentation I was working on, but I presented today and now I have time to film a very exciting video because I got these in the mail today. I have the new palettes from Alter Ego. This is the Canyon palette, which is the dupe for the Natasha Denona Bronze. And I also have the Bloom palette, which is the dupe for Natasha Denona Love. What I'm gonna be doing today is giving you some overhead live swatches of these because we all wanna see what they look like. What I'm not doing today is trying to come to a conclusion of whether or not you should buy these because I'm never here to tell you whether or not to buy something because that's such a personal decision and I can't make that decision for you. Also, I got these as PR, so my perception of value is already distorted. I'm not afraid to admit that. So I don't feel quite right telling you whether or not to buy this. So I'm gonna be presenting kind of the objective visual information and from there you can make your own decisions. You're an adult. I'll also be comparing them to past Alter Ego palettes that I have. This is the Artemis palette, which came out in the summer of 2019 or 2020. Oh my God, time. And this is the Alter Ego Daydream palette. There are similarities between these two and the new launches, just in terms of like color story. The Artemis palette is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Metropolis, and the Daydream is a dupe for the Huda Beauty new nude palette. Okay, oh, I was going to maybe do some eyeshadow looks with it too. I can't be bothered right now, but I did use one of these palettes on my eyes, and not only did I use one of these palettes on my eyes, I used one shade all over my eyes in true Sally fashion. So just to tell you right up front, the shade I'm wearing all over my lids is this shade Desert Moon. And duochrome. Without further ado, let's go into the overhead swatches and comparisons. But quickly, if this is your first time seeing me, meeting me, if you like my personality and like my content, I would be tickled, excited, elated, overjoyed, honored to have you subscribe to my channel before you leave. And also give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Okay friends, before we start, there's one major thing, just a detail about this palette that I have to mention, given that it was my favorite thing about the previous two palettes that I own, and that is that these pans are not magnetic. They are glued into the component like a normal palette, I guess, but that's a huge bummer for me just because those of y'all who know, especially have seen all the content that I've made surrounding the Artemis palette and rearranging that. I love magnetic pans. Really one of my favorite things about this palette is the ability to pick out shades and create my own kind of custom palette with this and rearrange it to make it more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Like I'm just itching, absolutely itching to rearrange this Canyon palette because I just want to do it. There's so many oranges, but alas, I cannot. Because it doesn't have that big magnet back piece in the packaging, these are significantly lighter than the previous like magnetic palettes that they've made. For example, if I compare the weight of the Daydream palette, which has just 3 more shades than these new palettes do, theoretically, like this should just be an increase of 20% of what the weight of the Blooms palette is, right? But the Blooms palette weighs around 5 ounces, whereas the Daydream palette weighs 8.5 ounces. So there's a significant difference in weight as well. That can be a pro, that can be a con. Honestly, like these are super nice and very luxe feeling, heavy duty cardboard and a great mirror that doesn't warp. Oop, that's me. But holding up, like especially this palette in one hand while I'm putting on my makeup can get very heavy and my arm can get tired. So these are just a lot more lightweight. If you're someone who likes to keep their palettes as palettes, which is pretty much most people who aren't me, I think that this change won't really make a difference for you at all. Also, both of these palettes cost $16 original price. I have a code for 10% off. It's Sally10, and I don't make any money from that, so it really makes no difference to me whether or not you use that code, but why not use a code if you can get an extra % off? The first palette we're talking about today is the Canyon palette, which is the dupe for Natasha Denona's Bronze palette. And here are all 15 shades together just at the beginning so we can see like the full picture. Let's start with the Canyon palette, and I love the picture and the image they use for the packaging of this. I don't know if this is actually Antelope Canyon, which is just a gorgeous natural wonder. It is just looks like this. It's stunning. It's on my bucket list of places to go, but unrelated to the actual palette, but I think the image is beautiful. First we have Mule, that reddish brown. Ooh, that's kind of soft. That's pretty soft, ain't it? And I'm gonna be swatching it over my tendon, so it may not swatch the best. Ooh, that's creamy. I like it. And I'm expecting all of these shades to perform well, not only because I'm familiar with Alter Ego formula, but also because these are warm neutrals. They're not very difficult to make. Secondly, we have Desert Sun, that warm sandy yellow. Again, I don't know if I'd call this sandy. It's pretty orange. And when I hear sandy, I think more yellow. But there is Desert Sun. And what I also like about these shadows is that they show up really true to color. One thing I can't be doing is comparing this to original Natasha Denona palettes just because I don't own those, but Jen Phelps already made like an excellent video comparing the two, and she also did some eyeshadow looks with these. So I'll link that in my description box, and I really recommend you check it out if you're curious about these palettes. Honestly, if you found my video, you probably already watched Jen's video, but she's a wonderful friend of mine and I always want to recommend her videos when I can. Next we have Plateau, a sparkling rose gold. Ooh. Oh, that looks duochrome to me. Ooh. Ooh, that's very nice. I don't know if it's particularly duochrome. What do y'all think? Maybe it is, because that flash is pretty gold, but it could just be like a, you know, a sparkly pink with some gold flecks in it. Let's like drag that down the finger and see some more of that shift. Okay. I'm calling that duochrome. The next shade we have is Scorch, which is a rich, sparkling gold. Again, not how I would describe it. It's pretty orange, like very coppery to me. But here is Scorch. Ooh, smooth. So this particular version of Alter Ego's formula is the like kind of plain powder metallic. It's nothing like the putty, creamy, kind of crushed metallic shadows that are in the Daydream palette, for instance. But these are just like standard high quality, high performing metallic shades. So there is Scorch. This kind of shade I'm also going to be able to find in my Alter Ego Artemis palette, so it's not like unique to my collection, but it performs fine. I think like a lot of y'all watching this video won't own these previous palettes anyways, so it doesn't particularly apply to you. Next we have Expanse, which is a dark brown black. So ooh, a very interesting kind of matte shade that we don't see a lot of. And this one is not powder, it's very putty and creamy. So it's one of their cream to powder formulas. Yeah, you can see like my indent of my finger in there. Nice, and I find that Alter Ego does do this, especially in Natasha Denona palettes to mimic that formula, but also with the darker shades. So here is Expanse. Ooh, so creamy. And the thing with creams, it's just that they blend really well, like very evenly. Sometimes they take a little bit more work than a powder will take, like in terms of time, but they blend well. I'm gonna layer up Expanse just one more time. I find that with these cream to powder formulas as well, they do take a couple layers to reach the true color that you see like in the pan. So I'm happy with that. Let's move on to the next shade. Onto the second row we have Blaze, which is a shimmering pinkish brown, very like rusty. Yeah. Right on. I don't know what to say. This is like a very kind of thick formula, like in terms of its feel. Its feel is very thick and it's a really opaque metallic. Next we have Russet, which is a soft chocolate brown, very warm, has a lot of red in it. And this seems like it's a powder, like a true powder formula, not this kind of cream to powder. So I accidentally picked up a lot of shadow. All right, that shadow doesn't look the most even because when I picked it up, I picked up like a flake, which smudged out into this line you see here. So let me just even out the bottom part of that swatch. All right, there is Russet. Next we have Cliff, which is a metallic yellow. Again, these yellows, kind of golds, are very, very orange leaning. It's like a yellow orange. So here is Cliff. Wow, that's actually pretty orange when I'm looking at it. And this one doesn't quite swatch with the opacity that some of the darker metallics have swatched with so far. You can kind of see it's a little bit more, I wouldn't really describe it as sheer. It just takes a little bit more. Oh, but the swatch looks really good. Dang it. I mean, not dang it, it's a good thing, but that kind of counteracts what I just said, doesn't it? This is another one that looks kind of duochrome. Very gold, whereas orange in the shadows. Next we have Cougar, which is described as a shimmering sandy white. Again, very interesting description of these shades. Would you describe that as a sandy white? This one also feels like it's one of those just a little bit more sheer. Like I feel like I need to dip in a couple times to get a lot of product. Yeah, that is not white. What is that description? Yeah, not quite as thick as the darker metallics. Wow, I gotta admit, even though those of y'all who know me on my channel, oranges are not my favorite color, but oh, man, these are very interesting oranges. If I wear orange, it's kind of like these oranges that have a little bit of something different, you know? Last shade in the second row is Sear, which is a light metallic brown. This is not very light now, is it? And is it brown? I know all of these swatches are me just questioning the descriptions of these shades, but nonetheless, I mean, I could like see and understand the descriptions, but just not how I would have described them. Like for example, like this, a sandy brown, and I would have described it more as maybe like a rosy orange. Next is Earth, a matte tangerine orange, and this is just a powder matte. Oh, that's a nice matte. As in like that's a good shade. I like that kind of shade. Maybe like a very warm transition tone. Nice, not a lot to say about that. Next is Coyote, a matte metallic yellow. Again, not how I would have described it. I would have described it more as like a bronze because it's not super light, it's pretty mid-tone. But anyways, again with my naming thing, this is Coyote. It's a little bit thinner, it needs to be built up a bit. But you really don't need to work hard with it. There we are, it's already at that level. Let me just even out this tail a bit. Okay, so far I find that the metallics in this palette, some of them are just a little bit thinner and a little bit drier than the ones in the Alter Ego, the ones in the Artemis palette. We're down to the last three shades. This is Rattlesnake, which is a light matte peach. This is the lightest matte in the entire palette. Only expanse has been that cream to powder formula. And I'm swatching a little bit on the dry part of my arm because I'm like at the inner part of my elbow. It is quite light and subtle, but it's supposed to be. Next is Rust, a dusty metallic brown, and this one looks like it's not quite as warm as the other shades. Oh, and because this is like a little bit of a deeper shade, it has that thicker, creamy kind of metallic formula. So here's Rust right in the crease of my elbow. Oh, this one is really, really creamy. Do you see that? Wow, that is opaque. Ooh, this is a good one. And I also like that it's not super warm, just because I kind of prefer that kind of bronze. And last shade, which is what I'm wearing all over my eyes, is Desert Moon. And this metallic is a little bit thinner than like Rust, Blaze, and Plateau and Scorch have been. Yeah, because it's a purple, I think it's a little harder to formulate, but it's a lot thinner. So you can see with the swatch. But for a one shadow look or a single shadow look, I think that this kind of formula like suits it well, just so it's easier to kind of build up slowly and blend out. There it is it in frame? I'm like seriously reaching so far over this table to try to get this in the camera shot. Ooh, those are all of the 15 shades in the Canyon palette. Are they in frame? If I were to pick favorite shades, I would pick Rust because that formula was really, really creamy and nice. And Desert Moon because I like this shade, like the color itself. Oh, and also Plateau, that pink to gold duochrome. Everything else is pretty orange, which again is not my preference, which is fine. It could be your preference, but also there's a lot of different tones of orange in here. I don't know if I needed all of those. Next, let's move on to the Blooms palette, which is duping the Natasha Denona Love eyeshadow palette. And here are all 15 shades together. As you can see, this palette just kind of has more going on in terms of tones and range instead of being super, super warm like Canyon. It has the cool silver to the peaches to coral to red to purples to pinks, and it just, I feel like you can do more with this palette in general. Oops, my battery died, but as I was saying, this is Daisy, and it's a little bit deeper of a silver than I typically see, which is cool because I don't have a lot of mid-toned silver shades. The formula is a little bit thinner, not as opaque as some of the other ones we've seen. Next is Kala, a shimmering gold. Ooh, this is a creamy metallic. I was gonna say, why did I say metallic like that? But anyways, here's Kala, which is that creamy, creamy metallic. Next is Dahlia, a charcoal black. Interesting. It looks kind of plummy to me, actually. Oh, and this is, as expected with that dark matte shade, that cream to powder formula. So there is, ooh, yeah, that's definitely plum. Like purple. One I need to build up a little bit because it's a cream. Ooh, yes. Ooh, I like that one. I'm looking at this and kind of thinking, trying to imagine me wearing it, and I wonder if it'll make me look like I have a black eye. You know what I mean? Man, I can't wait to use that shade. Onto the second row, we have Snapdragon, which is a soft Persian red. And this is not really like a true red. It's more of a pink. Yeah. I've been applying my eyeshadow with my finger lately just because I'm lazy, and honestly, it gives me a really good blend. So it's, wow, that was smooth. That didn't take any effort at all to make even. Next is Fuchsia, a sparkling mauve, and this was one of those shades that I was excited to try because even look at how it looks in the pan. You see like purple and pink and blue. So let's see what that really looks like. Ooh. What? Oh my gosh. Okay, let's build that up. Let's build it up. Ooh. This is the kind of shade I love. And it's not even like about the color, it's just about the dimension, you know, making shades a little bit interesting. Ooh, yeah, that is like a fuchsia to blue purple duochrome. Ooh, love it, love it. Y'all know I'm such a sucker for duochromes. Like with a duochrome, it just needs to work for it to impress me. Next is Petunia, which is a dazzling pink. Looks like maybe another duochrome. Oh, this one's creamy too. Oh, you see that dimension? It's kind of like hot pink in the shadows and a little bit peachy in the light. Let's just see it in the swatch. I keep on dilly-dallying. Well, that was unimpressive. So this shade is a little bit harder to work with than the other ones. And this is the first one that's kind of been like that. It's a little sheer. This one I will actually say is sheer. Oh. And now I'm looking at it in the viewfinder and the reflect is like hot pink. I know that's opposite of what I was saying on my finger, but yeah, it looks like kind of the base color is a peachy pink and the reflect is a more hot pink. Next we have Lily, which is a metallic cream. Ooh, soft. Yeah, this is soft. So there's, ooh, yes. Oh, I love that. It's so cute, so pretty. As y'all can tell, I really like pink shades, so I'm already a little bit, I'm pretty biased towards this palette just because the tones are my preference and what I like to wear, just because it makes me feel so cute and feminine and pretty. And that's another one with quite a shift. A lot of peach where the light hits and then more pink where it is in the shadows. Is that duochrome? Y'all let me know. Let me poll the audience whether you think that's duochrome or not. I may not exactly classify it as that, but it does have a lot of shift and kind of dimension. So moving right along, we have Lush, which is a matte currant red, not cream to powder. And I expect that this one is just a little bit dustier than say like an orange in the other palette. So not super opaque or anything. And also a little bit lighter than you would expect, say, looking at the shade in the pan. Onto Violet, that soft matte purple. This one is the one that I was curious to see how it would work. And granted, I know these are swatches. It doesn't exactly reflect to how it will perform on the eye, but we can just at least see things like opacity, dryness, texture, that kind of thing. And honestly, that's not bad at all. It just took a couple of strokes and that's pretty even, I would say. Yeah. I'll just fix the tail up a bit, but yeah, a little bit dusty, again, a little bit sheer, but these seem like the kind of mattes that are made to be built up. I'm okay with that, starting with a wash of color and then building up from there. Next is Orchid, a rich purple. Ooh, this is creamy. This, actually, I thought this was a shimmer, but it seems like it's a matte cream to powder formula. I don't know about this shade. I'm trying to even get it on my finger and it's just so sheer, I can barely see it. So, yeah. This shade is not my favorite so far. Yeah, that shade is, I don't know, yeah, I'm gonna call this shade a dud, or maybe it just takes a lot of work, but I think this is too much work than it's worth. I don't really know how I would use this shade, like in a way that would look good. I imagine trying to add this to a base would kind of mess things up. So yeah, there's the first shade that I truly do not know if I would use it. All right, now I'm zoomed out a little bit for our last three shades. This is Petal, which is a soft matte off-white. And the undertone looks, I don't know, this looks pretty true cream to me. Oh, maybe a little bit pink. Yeah, I don't really use this kind of shade a lot, but I mean, for the few times that I do a matte eye look, an all matte eye look, I will use something like this to highlight the inner corner. Next is Rose, which is described as a rosy matte red. This looks like the truest red out of all of the ones that we have here. So let's see if it turns out to be pink. And this is like a true matte, or sorry, a true powder, not cream to matte. Oh, it looks a little pink, but I'm impressed by actually how strong that's coming off. Nice. Oh. Okay, and the last shade is Hibiscus, which is a metallic blush red. And this one looks like it has a lot of cool kind of glitter and color happening in it too. It's a little bit dark. Ooh. There are all these little sparkles throughout it that flash different colors. And honestly, I have no idea if that's coming across on camera. Let me try and build it up one more time. And those are all 15 shades. Now this color story together, compared to the Canyon palette, it just looks so much more interesting to me because there's a lot of different tones happening. There's a lot of range going on. If I were to pick my top 3 favorite shades, it would be definitely Fuchsia, this one duochrome, Lily, this cream that's a little bit peachy and also maybe duochrome, and gosh, maybe this last shimmer called Hibiscus. Hibiscus also had that kind of thick metallic formula that I really like. That's a lot creamier and has more body to it. All right, for palette comparisons, I'm just gonna show you the palettes kind of side by side so you can just see the colors that are going on in each of these. If y'all want like individual swatches of shades side by side, definitely let me know, and you know, I can save that for another video. But here I have the Alter Ego Artemis palette versus the new Canyon palette. And if you own the Artemis, I absolutely do not think that you need to purchase the Canyon palette, because if I just cover up like these 5 shades, look at the similarity. This, yeah, you don't need to own both of these palettes. If you're trying to decide between the two, honestly, I think the formula works consistently between both of them, but the Artemis one does have these additional range of shades. So the Artemis is $22, I believe, versus the Canyon, which is $16. And you do get, you know, significantly more shades with Artemis, plus these pans are removable if that's important to you. So if I were to kind of be in that position of trying to decide to purchase one of these, I would actually probably recommend the Artemis palette. I think it's more versatile. The formula I think is amazing for these greens and blues down here. And overall, I think it's just a good investment, especially if you're like me and you like making your own custom palettes with these shades. But otherwise, I mean, y'all know what you like best. So that is a comparison between these palettes. Let's move on to the Blooms versus Daydream. So here I have the Alter Ego Daydream versus the Blooms palette. And a big thing just comparing these two is that the background, a black background, is gonna make the shades look so much different than a light pink or a millennial pink background is going to make them look. But even just like if I really focus in on the shades themselves, I don't see a ton of overlap. These two purples may look similar in the middle here. And also there's this one champagne which may be similar to Lily here, but Star-Crossed is more of like a true super sparkly champagne, whereas Lily had more of that peachy duochrome going on, if I remember correctly. And there was like a matte cream shade that's shared between the two, but otherwise I don't really see a lot of overlap here. The Blooms kind of has more vibrancy, I would say, compared to the Daydream, like with these rosy reds and corals and whatnot. So there's a comparison between these two palettes. Well, there was like a first look into the Canyon and the Blooms palettes. Keep in mind, today was like a first impression kind of deal. I'm gonna keep on testing this out and maybe follow up later on my channel, but I do hope that my kind of kinesthetic feeling and description of these shades, as well as you being able to visually see how they swatch, is helpful to you in your decision of whether or not you want to add these to your life. Just looking at these two palettes, I'm gonna say that this one excites me more, but this one did have this one shade, which I'm wearing all over my lids, and I loved this shade. And I found that more of the metallics were that thick, creamy metallic formula, whereas here there are more interesting shades like these three shimmers in the middle row, but the formula is a little thinner for more of the shades in here. It's a trade-off. Pretty much just pick the color story that calls you and that you're drawn to. The Canyon palette didn't have any duds for me in terms of formula, like with individual shades. As y'all saw in my swatches, I did have a lot of difficulty with this orchid shade within the Blooms palette, so also take that as you will. At this price point, which would be $14.40 if you use a 10% off code, it's more acceptable to have one shade that doesn't work super well as opposed to having a $65 palette with one shade that doesn't work well. I think that's just unacceptable to me. But anyways, let me know if there are any specific follow-up videos you want me to make with these, because I'll only make them if y'all are interested in it, like the side-by-side swatch comparisons with these two palettes, or if you just want me to follow up in like a speed review kind of video to give updated thoughts on these. So this is where I ask for your input because I truly do listen to y'all. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching and spending your precious time with me. Remember that y'all are my treasure. Find the beauty in every day, but most importantly, be kind to yourselves. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!